Hi, I'm Preston Williams, and welcome to another edition of Jazz Talk. Today on our show, we have a very special guest who needs no introduction. He has been on the scene for over 50 years and is a keyboardist, vocalist, composer, and producer. Now, during his long and illustrious career, he was an integral part of one of the greatest bands of all time. I'm talking about the Isley Brothers. Please welcome to Jazz Talk, Mr. Chris Jasper. How you doing, man?
Doing great. Hey,
welcome to the show. It's so good to have you on. Chris, as I started the show, opened the show, most people know you, of course, with your work with the Isley Brothers. You've been on the scene for such a long time, but we don't know that much about your humble beginnings, how all this started. I understand that you are from Cincinnati, Ohio.
That's correct.
Yeah, and so many great bands, of course, have come out of Ohio. But tell us a little bit about your upbringing, man, how you got involved in music, how this whole thing started.
Well, when I was a kid, I was about maybe 7, 8 years old. I used to listen to the radio and try to play songs off the, that I heard by ear.
Yeah.
And my mother saw me doing that, and she said, Chris, you have a good ear for music. You should take lessons and learn how to read music. And I took her up on that. So she knew this professor that went to our church, and I started taking piano lessons from him. And while I was taking piano lessons, I let him know that I wanted to, write music and be a composer, like the people who compose the songs that I was playing.
Right.
And he goes, well, you're gonna have to study a lot. You're gonna have to, learn how to orchestrate and learn how to write for all the other instruments. And he said, you're gonna have to study a lot. I said, okay, well, that's what I was interested in doing. So he started to teach me how to analyze music, how to break it down, to themes and harmonies and all the nuts and bolts of music. And I studied that for a long time until I graduated high school. And when I graduated from high school, I was able to audition for Juilliard School, and I entered their composition department and studied composition there. And that's how it kind of all got going. But all through that time in my high school years, I was also playing with Ernie and Marvin Isley. We had a group called the Jasmine Trio.
Yes.
And, we would play local dates in the area in New Jersey. And the older brothers, would come, they would see us play and they would see us rehearse. They had sometimes they have people come over to the house. Hey, listen to these guys, man, they're good,
Right.
And, eventually, they wanted us to start playing with them, to start recording and going on the road, recording with them. And that's kind of how all 6 of us came together.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, it was. I have a big background in music,
Yeah. I was checking you out, man. I know you're classically trained, but one of the things that I was impressed with, you actually studied jazz with Dr. Billy Taylor, man. That's my man.
Yeah,
he was great, That's
what made me go out to Long Island University from Juilliard, because the composition department was kind of rigid in their and what they wanted to do to compose. They compose atonal music only. That's the only thing they wanted to hear.
Right.
But I wanted to do a lot more things. I wanted to do jazz. I wanted to do rock and roll. I wanted to do R&B. I wanted to do a lot of different things. And so when I heard he was out at Long Island University, he was teaching a course out there, I said, well, I got to go out there,
Yeah.
and see what I can learn from him. And he was very, very personable man. Like when you meet him, you feel like you've known him all your life. Very friendly, very easy to talk to, and what a talent he was.
Yeah, and he played with so many great people. I actually got a chance to meet him and spend a little time with him a few years before he passed, and we just had a discussion about pianist Bud Powell. He loved Bud Powell, and something else. But early on, when you guys were putting this thing together, of course, you, Ernie, and Marvin had your thing going there. Interestingly enough, Ernie was playing drums back then.
That's right. Yeah, that's his first instrument was the drums. And what happened was, I would come up and just play with him, and he would play the drums, but we didn't have a third wheel. We didn't have a bass player, and Marvin wasn't playing bass at first.
Right.
So we said, look, you got to learn how to play bass, to round out this quartet here,
Right.
this trio. So he started to learn, and the more he practiced, he got better and better, and then we had the trio, which was much better than just the two of us jamming together.
Right.
But then later on, Ernie, he picked up the guitar and he started to, teach himself how to play guitar. And, all he used to do was practice with that guitar, all through college. I remember days of just walking home from the Fine Arts Center, and I used to hear him in the room, and he'd be practicing. He'd practice a lot of Hendrix stuff. He would practice,
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. A lot of people don't know that early on, the older brothers, O'Kelly, Rudolph, and Ronald, that Jimi Hendrix was in that group for a little bit with the Isley brothers.
Yeah.
Tell us about that, man.
He first he was kind of like this guitar player that everybody wanted to be in the band, because he had a reputation. He used to play with a lot of different people. I think he played with Wilson Pickett and some other people. And when he met the older guys, they loved the way he played, and Jimmy was just he was an attraction in the show, because he was so good, And then eventually he just went on to do his own thing. He moved to England and formed his own band, and the rest is history.
Incredible. That's incredible. Now, I was going to say, Chris, one of the things that I find very interesting early on in the band's career, when it was just the three of them, it seems like once you, Ernie, and Marvin joined the band just took off. I mean, commercially, they went on to have all this success. Were the older guys checking you guys out and saying, I think you fellas are ready. You guys want to join the band? Or how did that whole process come together? Were they like watching you and saying, these guys are honing their skills, I think they're ready? Because it seems like you guys were really instrumental to the success of the Isley Brothers. Once, you guys were on that first recording, was it 3+3? The band really took off, and you were writing most of that music.
Yeah, that's when the public got to see us for the first time on the album covers.
Yeah.
But we were doing the sessions before. We were playing on a lot of the records, and I think by the time we got to the Brother album, it was pretty evident that the band that they had before would kind of step aside, and we would kind of take over. I mean, it happened musically. It didn't happen from like if we had a meeting and somebody discussed, what was going to happen next. What happened was everybody started to see what was happening musically. I wrote Love Put Me on a Corner, which was a different song. To record. It had a little bit of classical stuff and it had a little bit of jazz, which is kind of my thing. That's kind of how I form my chords and my structures and things a little differently than everybody else was doing. So when they start seeing that come together musically, it kind of was just, it just made all the sense in the world that we would keep going in that direction, and I think 3+3, we only had like 2 or 3 other musicians on there, the drummer, George Moreland, and then Truman Thomas played organ. He also played on Love Put Me on the Corner too. But, it just musically, it just made sense to just keep going in that direction. And it just, they knew my background. They knew, they knew what I did. They knew what I could do. So most of the time they would just step back and let me do my thing,
Yeah, and one of the things, Chris, that I would hear, you pick up any of those recordings that you guys did, I would hear rock, I would hear R&B, pop. I mean, you guys did it all. And of course, Ernie's guitar playing, you could hear that heavy Hendrix influence. You could tell, you could just hear it. But one of the things that I like, I mean, I guess you being the musical director for the group, what was your vision for the band? I mean, what were you saying? This is the direction in which we want to go? Because it seems like each recording, each album you guys did just kept getting better and better and better. And a personal favorite for me is Harvest for the World. I love that, especially the beginning of it and the strings. I mean, I'm like, you wrote all of that, didn't you?
I kind of did Harvest for the World Prelude. I think that's what you're talking about, the beginning.
Yes.
I did that in about half an hour. Because we hadn't rehearsed that at all.
Oh, wow.
What had happened was, after we recorded Harvest for the World track, um, there was still no vocals done, but I was saying to myself, I said, you know, guys, it sounds like the song is going to be an important song for the album. And I said, it seems like it should be set up, you know, it should be something that precludes it, that sets the tone for it. And so I said, give me a little while. I'm going to figure out some things. So what I did, I went back to composition and I took elements of some of the songs that we had planned for the album, different elements from them, and some new things too, and kind of combined them to create the prelude, you know, and even using some of the melodies, a few of the lyrics, you know, just taking little pieces and putting together that prelude. And it took me about a half an hour, and then, you know, I did the piano part, and then, you know, I told Ernie, you know, that when the drums, you know, do the cymbals and just make it kind of a mellow kind of beginning, you know, and then hit into the main part of the song.
Now, what did the older guy? What did Rudolph, Ronald, and O'Kelly? What were they thinking? Were they like, man, this is some really, really good stuff? Were they just putting it in your hands and saying, Christopher, you know, what do you have in mind, or what are you working on? Because it seems like you guys were running the ship musically. You know,
yeah. After 3+3, and I think there was more confidence as far as they were concerned.
Yeah.
And what we could do professionally, you know, because like I said, they already knew my background, you know, what I studied and where I studied and all that stuff. So, but when they started to see the success that was happening professionally, you know, it was just, they just said, okay, you know, well, let me see what you got, you know. And then we did, I think, Highways of My Life and Lover's Eve, those kinds of songs that, you know, they would never have touched, you know, before. It added, you know, a depth to the group, you know, what the group could produce, you know what I mean? And I think after those 2 albums, they really just said, hey man, you guys, you know, just kind of do your thing, you know. And that's kind of how it went down, you know.
Yeah. Now you're related to the group. You're like what? And your older sister was married to Rudolph, right?
Rudolph, I see. Yeah.
Okay. Now you guys have that long run, man, from like what 73 to 83. It's like everything you guys put out was just on point. And I was just having a discussion with someone the other day. Is that all that music that you guys did? You guys have influenced so many people who've done your songs, from the late Aaliyah, Will Smith, Tupac Shakur. You know, many artists have done your songs. Whitney Houston, you know, For the Love of You, which was just a beautiful song. And of course, you guys, I guess, broke up at that point, and then you, Marvin, and Ernie formed your own thing, Isley, Jasper, Isley. One of the things that was amazing to me, I didn't know you could sing, man. When you came out with Caravan of Love, I'm like, that's Christopher? I didn't know that you could sing. That was like surprising to everybody. I'm like, wow. I said, this dude could have sang lead on some of the earlier stuff, but it's like, you do it all, man. I mean, I'm like, wow. And that was like probably one of the biggest hits that you ever had. I guess just before that, the last record you guys did, Between the Sheets. And then, of course, after that, you know, you formed. But tell us about that band, man, and that song, Caravan of Love, that you wrote. That was wonderful.
Yeah, Caravan was. That's always going to be a very special song to me. A lot of different reasons. But when you mentioned the singing part, I used to sing a lot when I was little, but only by myself. Okay. You know, I was a shy kid. I used to, you know, just go in another room, and, you know, maybe nobody else was in the house. And I would sing, and my mother caught me doing that one day. And she said, "I heard you singing, Chris. You know, you have a good voice. You have to join the choir." So she made me join the choir in the 4th grade, right?
Wow.
And ever since then, I've been in the choir, right? You know, and I was in the choir in college too. So I've been singing, you know, like all my life, but nobody ever heard me do it, you know. And you know, Caravan was one of the songs that really brought that out. You know, it was a big hit. You know, I wrote the song, you know, and it kind of set Isley, Jasper, Isley, you know, but put us on the map, you know. and it was a huge record. It was a lot bigger than I even thought it would be, because I thought it would be a hit, but I didn't know it would be like this huge worldwide thing that's happened with Caravan. You know, the House Martins covered it. You know, they had a huge hit with it, and you know, a European hit, and it's all over the world now. You know, and I'm just so happy because the message in the song is so good. You know, it's taken from the scripture. You know,
Yeah.
and I think the world needs to hear messages like that. You know, and I'm just so glad that, you know, it's so popular. You know.
Yeah, it was a great song, man. Let me ask you, as far as like, of course, the band now, looks like Ernie and Ronald are still doing stuff. Do they ever ask you every once in a while, Chris, won't you come on back and won't you perform a little bit with us? Have you done any of that over the years? Or have you?
No, I've been concentrating on my own, you know, solo projects and the projects I've had with other groups on my record label,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, just doing that. You know, I enjoy recording and writing songs. That's the thing I like most about this business. It's
Yeah.
creating new music. I mean, performing is cool too. You know what I mean? Because you get to see the reaction that people have, you know, to your music and all that. But I just like coming up with something new. It's nothing like having a new idea and just from beginning to end working on it and seeing it, you know, finished. I mean, I get a lot of satisfaction out of that.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to ask you, finally, you know, years ago, the Grammys finally gave you guys like a lifetime achievement, man. What was that like to finally get that after all that hard work you guys had done, you know, for decades?
It's a great acknowledgement, you know, to receive an award like that. I remember just sitting in my living room and I get a call, and it was the you know, I forget the guy's name right now, but he was the president, and he said, you know, I have a surprise for you. And I said, okay. He said, you know, you guys are going to receive the Lifetime Achievement Award, the Grammys. And I said, well, that's great. And he goes, well, you think you're going to show up? I said, of course I'm going to show up. I said, of course I'll be there, you know. And no, it's just a great thing to have that kind of the recognition that it kind of validates the fact that your music has touched people, you know, and it's become, you know, part of the kind of network of how things, of how people see the world, you know, because you have to have a big impact
Mm-hmm.
to have that type of award given to you.
Right.
And a lot of times I don't even think about that. You know, I don't think about, you know, how big something was. I'm thinking about the next thing I'm going to think about to record, you know, and how you mentioned, you know, like from 72 to 83, you know, how we always had something. I was always thinking about the next one. You know,
Wow.
once we finished one, my mind was, okay, we finished this one, and then what else am I going to come up with? You know, what else ideas can I? And I'm always, I do that now when I'm doing my solo projects. I'm on my 16th solo project, you know, For the Love of You.
Incredible, man.
Is the 16th album that I recorded solo. And I'm always thinking of what else I can do. There's always something else, because I think that's the training as a composer that I have. You know, you never get comfortable with what you've done. I mean, I think that's the key to stagnation.
Yeah.
Is getting comfortable with what you've already done. You know.
Exactly.
I can never.
I was going to ask you, Christopher, because of this COVID-19, of course, a lot of artists are not touring, can't tour. Now, do you stream any of your concerts online?
I haven't done that yet.
Okay. That would be great, man.
Do a lot of interviews and things, and that's been proposed to me. You know, somebody have asked me to do that.
Yeah.
It's just now I'm working on some music for a script my son wrote, you know, and it's for a movie. And scoring is always something I want to do too.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of working on that now. So it's just a time thing, because when you do a concert, you got to rehearse everybody, everybody has to be in sync with each other. And it takes time. It takes a little time to get that together. And when I get the time, I may do something like that. But right now, I'm like knee deep in this score, and
I got you.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
I look forward to hearing it, man, when you're finished with it. Who are some of your influences on the instrument? Because obviously you have a classical as well as a jazz background. Who are some of your influences on the instrument?
Well, the composers that were biggest influence on me were like Debussy and Ravel, even Gershwin. That time period. They started to use different types of harmonies, different degrees of the scale came into play, which kind of lend itself to some of the things that some jazz composers are doing, like I mentioned Gershwin, and that period, I kind of took from there and took a little jazz and to form my chords, you know what I mean? Which are a little different. Like if you listen to a song like Between the Sheets or something, it's a little different than, what other people were playing, or even For the Love of You, for example, or Sensuality, those, High Was My Life I mentioned before, Lover's Eve, they have different ingredients in them. And those are some of the biggest influences on, my writing, playing, and then I have other influences, Marvin Gaye, singers, Sam Cooke, two huge ones, even Ray Charles too.
Yeah, all those guys are great. Now, I was going to ask you, in regard to, your background, you're a Christian artist also, you've done some contemporary Christian music. Tell us about that, man. That seems like one of your passions and some things that you love to do. Yeah,
well, that's me. That's who I am. I'm a Christian first. And
man, brother.
It's who I am. And the messages in there, some of them are scriptural. Some of them are just, God's principles, how to live, in the world and not be of the world. But it's part of who I am. And I think that's important to show. Like I said, it's nothing greater than to give God the praise.
Man, brother.
Hopefully, because a lot of my music is not only praise music, but it's, sometimes it's like a prayer. Sometimes it's instruction, There's a lot of content in my gospel songs, which I do think is important that people, hear a lot of the message that God is trying to give to us, how to live. And rather than, because, praise songs are great, that's fine. But I think the more you get into context, the better, the richer it is, the more rich the experience is,
Yeah, that's beautiful. And like you said, there's nothing better than to let God use you, to do his work, to be a vessel and to do his work, here on earth. And that's the type of music that we need today, strong message music, those type of songs. Well, Christopher, listen, I want to thank you so much for being on Jazz Talk today, man. You're a treasure. Love you, love your music, and just keep on keeping on. Hang on, I'm about to close out the show. Well, you've heard it from the great Christopher Jasper. And as the saying goes, if the music grooves and makes you move, it must be jazz. I'm Preston Williams with Jazz Talk signing off. Peace.